Welcome to the July 6, 2023 Kent County Planning Commission meeting. I'll take the roll call here. James Saunders. Here. Ray Strong. Here. Paul Ruge. Here. Bill Crowding. Here. Bill Sutton. Here. All right, we have all the members. Our first item today will be a public hearing for a zoning text amendment. For those that wish to testify today for this application, please sign in. The applicant does not have to, but any other person that wishes to testify, please sign in so we can take your testimony. And then after that, if there's other people that want to sign in later for the other items, please do. We'll open up the public hearing now, and Ms. McCann, our legal counsel, will read the notice of public hearing.
Notice of public hearing of the Kent County Planning Commission was published in the Kent County News on Thursday, June 29th, 2023, as follows. On Thursday, July 6, 2023, at 1:30 p.m., the Planning Commission will hold a public hearing in the County Commissioners' Hearing Room, 400 High Street, Chestertown, Maryland, on the following item. Sandra Donnelly, requesting a zoning text amendment to include seasonal outdoor retreat as a special exception in the following districts: agricultural zoning district, rural character, rural residential, community residential, and village. Members of the public may attend meetings in person or via conference call. The agenda will be posted online the Friday before the meeting at www.kentcounty.com/committees/planning. If you have any questions, please contact the department at 410-778-7423. If you need communication assistance, please contact the Maryland Relay Service at www.marylandrelay.org or 711 for voice/TDD.
Thank you. First, we'll ask the staff to come up and make the report, and then we can ask the applicant to testify after that. Thank you, Carl. Okay.
So this is a proposal to add a new special exception in sort of the residential districts. It would be a seasonal outdoor retreat that with a number of conditions limiting the number of units, that dining services may be provided to patrons, that the property has access to a public road. There will be sufficient acreage for any proposed activities, and that will be landscaping around the parking areas. The proposal also includes a new definition of seasonal outdoor retreat, which is a lot, tract, or parcel of land containing up to 15 cabins, cottages, or pods designed for and utilized for seasonal, periodic, transient occupancy, and not as a permanent residence, which may contain outdoor recreational accommodations and which may contain dining facilities for guests and a central bathhouse facility. The applicable laws found in Article 12, Section 6, which directs the Planning Commission to address the public need for the proposed amendment, the extent to which the proposed amendment complies with or deviates from the comprehensive plan and critical area law. As far as the comprehensive plan goes, there are a variety of goals and strategies that look to expanding and providing more diversity in the size, number, and type of businesses, and promoting development of small locally owned businesses, as well as enhancing and expanding locally based tourism that is rooted in the unique natural, cultural, and historic features and qualities of Kent County. Staff comments that a suggested public need is for the amendment is to encourage development of local businesses that support natural resource-based economic activity. The county has a variety of lodging uses, from bed and breakfast with no more than 3 guest rooms up to conference centers and resorts with a maximum of 225 guest rooms. These lodging uses are kind of based on the idea that there's sort of a main facility for guests, and whereas this seasonal outdoor retreat would be more likely to be kind of individual units in a more campus setting. Staff recommends that the village district not be included as part of the recommendation, in that the village district is sort of a more dense district and maybe kind of an outdoor focus
Thank you, Carl. Is the applicant here or a representative or both? You step forward, please. Can you both state your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, my name is Lance Young, McLeod Logger, 110 North Cross Street, Chestertown.
Yes?
Sandy Donnelly, Millington, Maryland.
Will you affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I will.
Thank you very much.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. We won't take a whole lot of your time, but we are asking this planning commission for a recommendation to the commissioners to add seasonal outdoor retreat as a special exception use to the ordinance. So just to give you a little bit of idea of what that might mean, I'll just take a couple minutes to describe that for you. Kent County is already a destination for people who are looking for a place to stay that's something other than your typical hotel or motel. So we have a few good examples of that, where the destination is part of the experience itself. It's not just a place to stay, but it's an experience itself. So we have Bayshore Campground, which is one of the nicest campgrounds in the state. We have a couple of really nice bed and breakfasts in this county. And we have a couple of really nice country inns in this county. And they all kind of achieve that same kind of a goal, is having an experience kind of destination. So what Mrs. Donnelly wanted to add to her property was along that same vein, but it didn't fit neatly into any one of those categories, which is why we're seeking a special exception. So an outdoor seasonal retreat is something that's a little bit, it's not quite camping, it's a little bit more luxurious and comfortable than camping, but it also at the same time, it's a little bit more rustic of an experience than a bed and breakfast or a country inn kind of experience. If you Google the term and you go into your Google search and you Google glamping, you'll see kind of what we're talking about. This is something that is becoming more popular in our region, more popular in the country. In fact, it's becoming popular around the world. A lot of things that you'll see, like out in the western United States, you'll see little outdoor retreats like this where from the outside you see what looks like teepees, but when you go on the inside of the teepee, it's a luxurious bedroom type atmosphere on the inside. What we're talking about is something akin to that. Mrs. Gerber did a good job of talking about public need and consistency with the comprehensive plan. I'll just elaborate on that a little bit more. Public need, like I said, this is a retreat. It's a specific niche that is not specifically addressed in our Kent County ordinance. These kinds of things, I think, could bring some good tourism to the county. What these kinds of experiences are, a lot of times these outdoor retreats come with a theme, but they don't have to. Oftentimes these kinds of retreats also cater meals to their guests, which is something that's a little bit different than other kinds of experiences. And they also cater activities to their guests, which is different from certain other kinds of experiences. Consistency with the comprehensive plan, we think that this is very much consistent with the goals of the comprehensive plan of economy and of tourism. We're hoping that this kind of experience can bring additional good tourism to the county. The sub-goal of the comprehensive plan is to support existing businesses. What we foresee happening is that if people come to a resort like the one that Mrs. Donnelly would eventually like to put on her property, that those folks would also visit other properties in the county, and they would also visit our other restaurants and visit other shops and things of that nature. The comprehensive plan also has a subcategory, a strategy of developing year-round attractions. And I think attraction is a good word for describing what kind of resort we would like to do. It's not just a destination, it's an attraction that we think could bring some good tourism to the county. But it's also consistent with the comprehensive sub-strategy of having or maintaining a small rural character. Resorts like this are very much rural in character, and so we think that this will help maintain consistency with that goal as well. So I will allow Mrs. Donnelly to, we have some pictures. These aren't necessarily pictures of what she wants to do, but they're examples of what you might see from this kind of this kind of a proposal, if I could distribute this to each of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Young, did you want to mark this as an exhibit?
Sure, we'll have that as our one exhibit, thank you.
Note that.
Hello, my name is Sandy Donnelly, and I own property in Norrington, Kent County. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my ideas on helping to increase tourism in our area. I would like to use a portion of my property to introduce glamping to Kent County. This is an idea that's very popular in other parts of the country and Europe. It's a major step up from traditional camping and will not include RVs or RV hookups. The plan is to have what are called pods. They are basically cabins that are approximately 200 square feet that will have heating, air conditioning, and running water for a sink. All toilets and showers will be in a bathhouse. Pictures on page 2. The kitchen will be communal, as will a fire pit. There will be no Wi-Fi. Most technology that will be used will be for a projection screen on movie night. Available activities will include a playground, a petting zoo, a catch and release fish pond, dependent on agricultural approval. Other ideas are to convert an old school bus into a library based on the Magic School Bus. I'm also looking into a water wheel that will increase photo opportunities. We are hoping to theme each pod based on a literary classic such as Alice in Wonderland, The Secret Garden, The Hobbit, and many others. We would also promote all the area has to offer in the way of hiking, walking trails, and kayak access, in addition to the quaint towns and marinas in Galena, Chestertown, and Rock Hall. Living in an area that is rural, we tend to forget that many do not. I believe people who live in cities and suburbs would love to experience 2 to 3 days away from the hustle and bustle less than 90 minutes from their door. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You don't speak well.
Yes, you did.
So much better.
Do any of the members of the Planning Commission have questions for the applicant or representative?
I had a question. How many acres is in that piece of land?
In that area is 30, just shy of 30.
So you have a record bit of space between the pods. Once I get.
Well, the entire property is just shy of 40, and the residence that, and what we use now is around 10, so it's about 30 that will just be used. I mean, it's connected, but that's what we're kind of earmarking for it.
If this is added to the ordinance, we'll have to come back for you to get that special exception, and we'll have to get site plan approval and all those things, so.
I think I have one concern. This is probably more to the board than to Ms. Donnelly. I've looked at the various districts that you want to be in, that you're asking for the zoning to be changed. And to me, what you're asking for is already in all the districts. I
That
mean,
was so vague from what everybody's opinion was as
But-
far as could it work here, could it work there, and that's kind of why we like this.
I guess I would have to say, all you'd have to do, to me, is put together a site plan with what you wanted to do, and it already exists. I mean, I don't understand why we have to change or add to the zoning rules or the planning book here that we've got. Of course, that's subject to change someday, who knows when. But at the same time, I'm sorry, I just,
I agree, but
in your agricultural district, obviously, it's mostly your farm, correctly?
Yeah,
That's out there.
Beaver's and Royal Residential.
And to me, I guess I can't say you may be building houses, but you're not growing them. This is more of a commercial entity than, you're changing it to commercial versus farming. I mean, I guess I'd say I have some problems with it. But since it is allowed under retreat, or, I have some notes here, you got, either retreat, rental unit, resort, rural inn, all of that is allowed in all these districts, so I don't understand why.
The issue is that the planning office did not consider it to be allowed under any of those uses.
Well, granted, I'm directing it to you, but at the same time, I guess I'd have to ask the planning, the planning commission, and not us, but the people in the planning, why, in the planning department, why are you trying to nail it down so tight? And it's not really nailed down tight. I mean, you're not putting in, you're saying up to a number of units. Can be a bathhouse, you can have either, you got a bathroom in the, last time I saw something like this, it was in a YMCA camp when I was 12 years old. You know, you had the cabins, you went in, you slept in there, and then if you had to go in the middle of the night, you had to run down the trail to find it. You already found a tree out and back. And I don't think your farm has got too many trees on it right now. But it's all little boys.
But you want to speak to this, Carla? Thank you.
So we as staff did go through sort of all of the various lodging options and made the determination when you actually look at what the conditions are for those other special exceptions or what their definitions are, what Ms. Donnelly was proposing did not fit. And so, trust me, we went through this numerous times trying to see if there was something that we felt worked and made the determination that it did not and that she should make a proposal for specifically what it is she wants to do so that there be no question.
I guess I have to still say I'm still confused or concerned as to why we just can't use what we already have. I mean, through site plan, you're putting together what you want to do, and that's was your objective. I mean, you know, and then we would look at site plan. I mean, that's my feeling on the thing. I'm sorry, it's just.
Right, but this use is not allowed. So if you look, say,
It's a
for
retreat.
example-
It's a retreat.
But when you go to look at the special exception or the definition, it doesn't fit. So, I'm getting to the page, yes.
Maybe I can help.
So a retreat is,
Oh, I got the page number somewhere.
so a retreat has to have at least 10, but not more than 40 guest rooms. So when Ms. Donnelly first came to us, she wasn't looking to do as many as 10
You're not going to have 10 bathrooms?
Guest rooms.
guest rooms.
Oh, guest rooms.
Yes.
I always said bathroom, sorry, a little hard to hear.
So she wanted something smaller. When you go to Country Inn, it's pretty clear that that's meant to be a building. I know we've had lots of other discussions as to what
Right.
the campus is
No, I
meant
would,
by that.
you're right, I wouldn't consider it a country inn. I would, you know, but the retreat, you know, if it's 10 rooms or up, so if she proposes 8 cabins, then still, it's within the site plan, maybe then.
It doesn't, the Board of Appeals has to make the decision for the special exception, and they're gonna go, well, this doesn't meet the conditions that have been set forward for what a retreat can be.
Well, I guess I can't understand why the Board of Appeals can't make a difference between 8 or 10.
Hey, Carl, what got you there? It says there shall be sufficient acreage for the proposed use and activities. Is there going to be some sort of, I mean, do we just sit here and say, yeah, 5 acres is big enough? Or is there so many acres for each unit, or what? Do you foresee anything like that?
No, I don't, I foresee that when an applicant would bring forward the site plan to go with their special exception, that's when it'll be reviewed by you, it'll be reviewed by the health department, do they have enough space for whatever kind of septic system is needed? Do they have, if she's proposing a petting zoo and a pool and a playground, and I think that's where we're looking at, is there enough room to accommodate all of that kind of use? So we would evaluate it on the site plan, and no, we don't anticipate needing to have specific standards to say that you can have 1 pod per acre or half acre or whatever.
Does that become a subdivision at that point? An extra lot? Are you going to make it an extra lot, an extra, let's say, the Donnelly Campground site, does that become an extra lot subdivided off of the existing farm? If that becomes a glamping area?
Not necessarily.
Why not?
Well, I mean, they would have to go through that subdivision process if they wanted to be able to title it separately from.
Okay, that's true. And at the same time, you're also making room on it, my understanding is for a house for whoever's going to oversee this or whatever?
No, we already have sufficient. Right now, we have, our property
Right.
So I have the main house on like the front 6 acres, and then the rest of the property also has a smaller, a rancher that people live in, that oversee a lot of the animals and everything. So I wouldn't need anything, whether someone else would, a different piece of property, that's different, but I already have that.
And your retreat, it says seasonal, but is that all 4 seasons?
I would like it to be. I can't see people coming for weeks, but I can see 2 to 3 days. We'd love to do activities and themes around Halloween and Christmas. I am gonna have heat and air, so my season would not be deterred by the seasons, the 4 seasons.
And transitional, what is a transitional person?
Transient.
Transient, I'm sorry.
Meaning people don't live there. It's a place that people, visit like they would a
But
hotel.
once they move in, who's moving them out?
Well, I mean, it'll be like any other kind of B&B, where if they're there for 2 days, then they have to get out, but I will have employees.
Any other persons want to? I also have a question about that. Your council talks about year-round attraction, but I guess some of the definitions in this are confusing me. Seasonality means what to a special exception? When they come forth with a site plan and does that mean?
My understanding of the term seasonal when it's used in the zoning context is it just means not long-term. It means something that occurs on a short-term basis.
Okay. And the other is, in the dining services may be, the way this is written, dining service may be provided for guests to prepare their own meals. A central bathhouse may be provided instead of individual bathrooms. What do we need? What does that mean? You may have bathhouse or you may not?
I guess
It's written as if you may have a bathhouse.
my proposal is that we will have them. I think the text amendment was written for a broader definition.
Yeah, it means that if somebody was proposing this for a different property, they could or could not, depending on whether, whatever their plan would be. But this, the way it's worded in this proposal is that that's something that could be there, but not necessarily there.
You could envision these cottages without any bath facilities?
Potentially.
Or they could have bath facilities in each unit, or they could have a central bathhouse. I think it's,
Yeah, I'm preferring to do where I want to do a bathhouse that contains 2 showers, 2 toilets, 2 sinks, and one of them for every 2 units. I just don't want to attach them.
I understand what you want, man. I'm not,
Yeah.
it's the way it's written is confusing to me. If someone comes in for an application, and this is for the whole county and in many zoning districts. And the other part is the event part. We have rules on wedding venues and things like that. And I can see, not that you may have weddings there, I'm just saying, but weekend parties, concerts, things like that, that those uses would need to be
I would think that.
codified.
Just hypothetically, if someone wanted to rent all the units out because it was a wedding party, there's not much I can do about it. If someone wanted to come and have a music thing, then I would probably have to get a permit, right? I mean, how does that work?
I don't know. I don't see it in this. You talked about having events, and I don't mean that they're massive events, but events do impact neighbors.
Yeah, well, we don't really have any neighbors, but other people may.
But this is for the whole county, that's why. It's more not about what you're doing. It sounds, I admire your plan and your ingenuity to develop it, but we're looking at it
Yeah,
to
if
be a
you're
part of
looking
our,
for a broader definition, then I'll stop.
no, you don't need to. I'm just concerned about how, if we don't specify some of these things about events, how long people are, the use, times of the year, the seasonality to me means that there is sometimes it would not be used as we're in, rural residential is allowed in this, and those are small lots. Someone could put this in a neighborhood setting even.
Yeah, the intent is not to limit it by the season. That's not the intent of the language, so that could be worded differently if that's confusing to you. I think as far as events go, we treat it just like any other, lodging venue. If there's an event that requires an event, they have to get that permit.
You're treating it like any other lodging thing, so now we're back to,
Okay.
it's already there. I mean,
Okay.
I really have a problem, that's what I
Okay.
said, just saying.
Any, you got James or Ray or any more?
You've been talking about outdoor events, and I don't see that as part of the definition that they're putting in there.
It's called Woodstock.
So I come back to the old way, how we gonna tax it? I mean, the guy that's got a hotel, he's paying taxes, the guy's got a campground, they're paying taxes, so I'm assuming there's some way they're gonna tax this too.
It would be subject to the room tax that any other lodging is.
Are there any members of the public that have signed in to testify? And if you haven't, do you want to testify? Campbell, I don't know who's going, Mark, are you going to bring up, or you have it already? I'm sorry.
I have a couple.
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Just thought I would point out, which is that, you know, you could propose some limits on the special exception standards. For example, Rural Inn specifies that transient, thanks, Mr. Saunders, that transient stays are 45 consecutive days or less, so you could propose a limit along those lines. The Country Inn specifies a maximum of 40 people for dining facilities, and it also says, and this may just be a little discrepancy for staff to address, for Country Inn, that dining facilities may only be provided to patrons other than boarders. Let me see where that is. Dining facilities may, not only, dining facilities may be provided to patrons other than boarders. So at the Country Inn, you'd have your boarders, plus you'd have other patrons, such as like a wedding guest, who would be there to dine. In this proposed special exception requirement, in B, it says 54.5B, the proposed language, dining services may be provided only to patrons. So I don't know if that was intended or not. And later, in that section, the people who will be using the facility are referred to as, I'm sorry, in the definition of seasonal outdoor retreat, those who would use the facility are referred to as guests. So we've got patrons, boarders, and guests in our different special exception uses. So I'm just not sure that dining services are intended to be limited only to patrons. Who would the patrons be? People other than the people who are staying in the facilities? So that might need some tweaking. You may decide you want to address that.
Well, if I could just piggyback on that, I think because this is a proposed special exception use, I think that this commission and the Board of Appeals could put specific conditions on each proposal that comes before it. So as you're looking at a specific proposal and what it means to that property and that area that surrounds that property, then you can design, you can design certain specific exceptions and things that are more appropriate to that property. I don't know that we necessarily need to get bogged down in adding all kinds of exceptions generally when they might not apply to a specific property.
Yeah, but we're not talking about just this property. We're talking about the entire county. And if you look at this map and see the areas that you affect, which is the southwestern part of Chestertown, Millington of where you are, but going out east of Millington, there's a large area. Galena, once you go up north of Galena along 213, the whole left-hand side is all affected. All of this is areas where these, quote, glamping areas could possibly go in. I mean, like I say, I have no problem, I understand your project,
I happen to have.
but the areas that it affects all over, to me, is, quite honestly, is a problem. Unless there's a real tight description of what needs to be done and who's going to enforce it. Because again, my concern is you get people move in, you got nice facilities, I want to know who's moving them out. Because it will happen. It's today's world.
Yeah, I will have employees.
It's today's world.
Just, I know it's not my say, but could you do this where nothing under 10 acres would be considered?
I don't know. I'd rather see the proposal put forward, from your side to here. Or from the planning department's side, the two of you working together. I'd rather see a more descriptive, pointed, to Jim's thing, we need a better description. To me, it's just too broad. It's way too broad.
I agree, it's too much loose baggage somewhere. And they already have, P and Bs, but they're only accommodating certain things. So, if you wanna put in a small entertainment center, some of them in this county right now, they put up, Jason Barnes for features of entertainment.
I think the entertainment's called Woodstock. That's where I grew up.
I'm too old for that, I missed that one.
Ray, did you have something?
It was just kind of recapping on the setbacks, for example. Didn't hear us talk about that at all, especially if, depending on where we put it in the county, the criteria for lot size, like she was talking about. If it's such a small lot, I don't know how you could put 10 or more, and then the spacing between them and the parking for them, all that should somehow be ironed out to some degree before we go too much farther.
That's, again, I just want to emphasize that this is proposed as a special exception use, which means that each individual project gets evaluated on its own merits and pertaining to the specific, issues that are pertaining to that property. So I think a lot of the things that are being discussed right now, I think would be dealt with during that special exception process.
Okay, thank you. Was there persons that had signed up to testify, or?
Mr. Cassidy?
Not on this matter.
Not on this matter. Anyone here to testify on this? Okay. One, two, okay. And Ms. Langenfelter, you signed up, so.
Got the phone too.
Why don't you, can you hop around to that mic there, or remove the mic one, yeah. Sorry. Can you raise your right hand and first give your name and address for the record?
Why don't we have the applicant and the applicant's attorney just sit back in the audience, so then we
Okay.
can have the public members just have the table to themselves.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
You're better at decorum than I am. Can you state your name?
Pat Langenfelder, Station Road, Kennedyville.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I concur with a lot of the things that were already brought up by you planning commission members. I would think that you would have a minimum and a maximum size acreage. You want 50 acres or do you want a maximum? I'm just giving a number, but I can see a camp. This one says up to 15 units, I think, didn't it?
Yes.
Suggested. So they probably would need 50 acres, but depending on what they want to do, what their activities would be. But anyway, I would still think there should be a minimum and maximum acreage in there, because I don't like the word sufficient. It's too loose, too open-ended. Obviously, in most of these places, most of these zoning areas are going to be needing septic, I would think, for this. So I suspect that's the health department's domain, but it's still how much septic is we're adding into the county, especially in the rural areas. We already have camps, we already have retreats, zoning in our zoning ordinance, and I agree with Mr. Ruge in the fact that isn't there some way that we can use those and just modify it somewhat to allow for this type of business or project to occur? I'm not opposed to the idea. I just think we need to have a little more tightening of the regulations, because setbacks were mentioned. What about lighting? What about noise that's going to be generated? Should we have some restrictions on that? And what types of activities? I know you jokingly said Woodstock, but I was thinking the same thing. I wrote that down here. But my other question has nothing to do with this specifically, except that are we still in the comprehensive rezoning update process? And if we are, shouldn't this have gone in through that, into that? And am I wrong, when we were still doing rezoning, when we were still having those meetings, was the planning department going to send out letters to the public and ask if they wanted to make any more changes? Or was that ended last year? I'm lost because I think that went on 3 years. So I'm not sure if that's still an active thing. I haven't gotten my real estate tax bill yet, and that's where the letter was enclosed last time. So I wasn't sure where the
Okay.
process is. So this is coming in as a separate entity, whereas I didn't think the comprehensive rezoning was finished, so that it could have been part of that process. That's just saying that. Other than that, I don't have any more comments.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else signed in or will sign in? Step forward, please. State your name for the record and address.
Do I have to do this?
Yes, you do.
Janet Christensen, Louis,
Do do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I think so.
All right.
It's just questions.
Okay, okay.
I didn't think of Woodstock, I thought of Burning Man, but. I think you've raised a lot of the kind of the same things that I proposed when I took a look at this, and it's difficult for me to tell, sitting back here in the audience, whether I'm at a hearing for a zoning text amendment or if I'm at a site plan approval, because that's what it seems to be. Every question that comes forward is that's not what was envisioned on this piece of property. And a text amendment applies to virtually, I mean, particularly this particular text amendment, RC, RR, CR, AZD, and it looks like it's not recommended village, but it was originally for village as well. And those lots vary from, what, 500 acres, 1,000 acres, down to 1. If you look at the article, I guess it's Article 7, Section 7, the special exception, number 49 for retreats, it's moderately detailed in what it is that would be allowed in a special exception. When you send this forward as a special exception to the Board of Appeals, they need some guidelines to go off of. They can't just make this stuff up out of their heads. I mean, it seems like this is ill thought out, and I'm not sure either that it needs to be done. That article, the special exception article under retreats, number 49, could have been made. And I also have a problem with, we've added in cabins and cottages. We have no description of cabins and cottages or pods in our land use ordinance. What are they? Are they accessory buildings? If they're gonna have heating and cooling, that means that they could be used year-round. This says seasonally. I think this has already been brought up. To me, seasonally is a season. You know, it's summer, it's winter. These look like permanent structures on the landscape that wouldn't be considered seasonal. They would be there all year round, and as the applicant has stated for her particular plan, she's hoping that people do stay there year round. That to me becomes a problem of just being people living in these spaces. And that you could provide, the thing that where it says that you could provide a bathhouse, if you don't do that, you're going to have individual showers and bathrooms in all of these places that are going to be permanent on the landscape with heating and cooling. That seems like housing to me. And yet this article doesn't address any of the things that would be necessary. Setbacks, lighting, sufficient land. What is sufficient land? How much land do you have to have up to 15 pods on it? And it says no RV. It doesn't even say that on there. She said she wouldn't have RVs, hookups, but people could, they do it all the time at Shadding Reach. They bring in RVs and their RVs and trailers to those properties, even though they're staying in a property that may be a permanent structure at Shadding Reach, but they're also utilizing RVs, and she may not allow them on her property, but that doesn't mean that other people wouldn't be allowing them on their property. And I just think that we have a situation here, who's going to monitor this? This kind of looks like Bayshore Campgrounds Redux. And I would request that the Planning Commission give this an unfavorable recommendation. I'm not against what she's trying to do. I just think this text amendment is a formula for total disaster in the county. Thank you.
Thank you. There, wait, we'll give you a chance, ma'am. There are a couple people on online or watching virtually. Do they have questions or comments? Hearing none, is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to comment? You can come forward, Mrs. Donnelly. Go ahead.
The only thing I'd like to, once you decide whether or not we need this text amendment or it goes under something that's already on the books, my suggestions are maybe you just say a minimum of 10 acres and maximum of 7-night stay. That will take care of a lot of nonsense, but, you know, I don't know. Like I said, I understand the point that my property can handle its own well, its own septic, and all that. But I understand if someone comes up with 5 acres and they want to do the same idea, and the next thing you know, you have low-income housing. So I agree on that. I will do whatever you want me to do to make it work.
As an aside, ma'am, have you talked to the health department?
Yeah.
What did they say about 15 units?
They didn't even, what happened was, I just started with, all right, let's start with the easiest thing first, let's get septic.
Mhm.
And they came out to the perk test, and that was months ago. And the main reason is that I wanted to know where they suggested it should be and how much I would have to kind of exclude from what I want to do, because it would need to be used for the septic reserve. I haven't gotten any response. I'm told they're having some kind of a employee problem there. So I can't find out even when I'll get those answers. But they did the perk test. I have enough room for the reserve, I have enough room for the septic, I have enough room for a well. And that's also something you could think about putting in the thing, that it must have its own utilities. I already had its own electricity hooked up. I'm just trying to do everything I know that I don't really need permission for. So I can run electricity to my place, I can put a new septic and a well there to my place without anyone saying, no, you can't. And that was one of the reasons originally I was wanting to do a pool, and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna forget about that, because I was told that it had to be in-ground, and I assume that's because of probably an accessible thing. And I didn't wanna do an in-ground without knowing where a well and septic would be. So, that's kind of, I'm just trying to get everything in line so that if and when I get permission, I can get moving.
And like I say, the health department has their rules. I just question that 15 units is a minimum of 15 bedrooms, and that's quite a septic system.
Right,
For-
right, and I.
That may not be achievable.
Yeah, I personally wasn't really gonna do more than 10. Again, that's all up to everyone who's in charge. You tell me what I can do and I'll make it work.
Okay. Well, and please know, I think you've heard it from
Yeah.
the testimony and from the thing, we're not opposed to what you're doing. We just want to make sure when the next person comes in somewhere else.
The property just is being wasted. It's just an empty field sitting there. I'm not gonna farm. You know, this is something that I know I could do.
I just have one final.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Final point I want to make is that if you are too specific, if you are too restrictive in the definition that you are putting forth in your ordinance, you find yourself in the same situation that we're finding ourselves in now, is that we have definitions of country inn, we have definitions of resort and retreat in county ordinance, but they
Thank you. I think we can close the public hearing unless there are any more questions or anyone online or any questions for the applicant. I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, our public hearing is closed, and now we can deliberate and possibly ask staff some questions, too, about the issue of retreats, how to amend what retreats would be. Would that be a better term when those definitions are known, things like that, as opposed to putting another?
One, as that gentleman, is the number within the, if it's 10 and up, if that's the only real sticking point, why can't we
Well, let's,
maybe propose that we lower the amount of tents or buildings or whatever you
well, we've
wanna
got a
call
few
it?
issues. I think Ms. McCann brought up the thing about definitions of who are patrons, guests, and all those things, and for use, for the use part of it. It's special exception, we deal with use, and that, we should have consistent definitions there, too.
So I don't feel that changing retreat is really gonna get us to where we wanna be. Because when you look at the definition of a retreat, it's a small meeting facility in a private natural area, free from distractions, thus allowing meeting participants to focus on the goals and objectives of the meeting. So we have to pair that definition within the standards for use, and again, that didn't really fit the concept that Ms. Donnelly was bringing forward for what she wanted to do. And so we can't, these are the standards by which the Board of Appeals would have to be reviewing an application by, and if it doesn't meet those standards, then we would really kind of have a hard time bringing it forward. You would come to us and say, well, it doesn't meet, I'm not sure where you think we can go from there, but I worked with Ms. Donnelly on, I think, at least 2 or 3 times with her, kind of talking through this. I worked with Lance to come up with was there an option for one of our lodging uses that we could change that would fit sort of her concept? And ultimately, we decided that amending existing uses really wasn't gonna get Ms. Donnelly to where she wanted to be, and that's why we said, bring forward text that we can review that's gonna fit your need, your purpose, without us trying to shoehorn something into what we already have.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to comment, Mr. Chairman, if I can. I mean, I agree with what Ms. Gerber said, which is that it would be difficult to change the existing special exception uses, rural inn, retreat, and I'll throw country in there as well, to accommodate this kind of use. But I think it could work if the proposed definition and special exception standards were just revised a little more than what we have. Because, for example, the rural inn and the retreat, both of those definitions, and even country inn again, say that they are a facility. Rural inn is a facility, retreat is a small meeting facility, country inn is an existing building, specifically one that existed prior to 1989. And all of those special exception standards address, on some level, the acreage of the project. So rural inn, the project has to consist of collectively 20 acres, retreat is 15, country inn, the project could be more structures where there's more than 25 acres in a marine district. And here, the definition for the outdoor retreat is not a facility, but a lot, tract, or parcel that can contain a certain number of structures, plus dining facilities, plural, and a central bathhouse. And there's no limitation in the special exception proposed standards for size of the property, for example. That could be one area that could be further tweaked, which is what you all talked about as a possible area of concern. Also, again, the definitions of who can use the dining facilities, just kind of clean that up so we don't have, for those types of special exception uses, you don't have boarders, renters, guests, patrons, you know.
Well, thank goodness our new zoning ordinance is going to be more user-friendly.
I think it can work. I think maybe your input is needed as to
I think
what
we need
language
better
might be
definition.
included
Absolutely.
in
Well,
those
we
standards
can-
or the
I think
definition.
Cindy said, whatever we recommend to the
Right.
Board of Appeals, we usually give some thought to what, if it, any corrections we'd recommend, whether it's favorable or unfavorable, what we could do, and tighten up definitions, you know, use, acreage, some stuff that was heard in testimony, and you all have just brought up.
Just a better description.
Or you could do it here in your recommendation to the county
This is
commissioners.
going to the county commissioners, right? So, I think it needs to be tighter.
Well, one thing I would like to see is a change from guests to patrons. I think that clarifies some of it. I mean,
Because guests could be, you know,
it could be anyone stopping in. But then a patron, someone who's buying too, I don't know. So that's why Lance is here.
But, Jeff,
yes, sir.
she, from what I understood, she said that she's willing to work with us on setting it up so that she can process this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what we have to, basically what I'm listening at, that we have to change some of this to meet her needs, but also make sure that another individual don't come in the county and say, we can do this. Like the acres. We gotta put a stipulation on, say, okay, no more than 20 acres, or something like that, in order for her to accommodate what she wanna do, I think. I think we need to sit down and say, this, and then present it to her and say, this is what you can do. And then we can go along with that. Where she's saying, she said once where she said that, I think it was 15 cabins, and she said that she could deal with 10. So,
I don't want the place ever left. I was sorry.
you know,
Well, I think there's another concern there too, because again, if you look at the zoning map and the areas that this includes, what is the limit? Is there, like we have with solar panels, is there a limit of, is there going to be a distance between these glamping areas? Or can somebody with a 300 acre farm put in 10 or 15 of them? All on the same farm, you know, what,
well, I think that,
I mean, granted, it's not, it wouldn't affect your property, but there are some larger pieces of property that, yeah, you could spread them out, spread them all over the farm, so to speak, and you could run 200-300 units and still stay out of sight of each other.
that's what I'm saying. Then we would have to, we should make that also, if a farm got so much on it, if we only want one of them on that farm, we should stipulate in that rule. Then that farmer can't go around there. I'm not saying that farmer can't go around there and build 20 of them. If we stipulate the rule, say,
Right.
this is what you can do.
No, I'm just bringing up what possibly could happen.
Can we start, if we're going to make some recommendation, I'm not saying what it will be, but to give Ms. Donnelly some clarity and to move forward, what are the zoning densities for community residential and rural residential?
Community residential is 1 dwelling unit per acre, and currently rural residential is 3 dwelling units per acre.
Okay, there's a start for me would be you'd limit to the AZD and the rural character. That we wouldn't use it in those lower density areas or higher density areas in a sense. So we don't have this quiet retreat idea is more accurate.
That's not gonna work for our applicant, because she, I believe, is currently zoned rural residential.
I thought she was rural character. Or, okay. What's rural character then? That's 1 of 20.
Rural character is 1 per 20.
1 for 20, okay. Okay. So, but we could limit community residential. So that does eliminate some of this about small lots. That's what I'm trying to get.
Just to be perfectly clear, one of the recommendations moving forward with the rezoning is to combine rural residential and community residential, at which point this use would be in community residential.
Yeah.
That fits in.
So you think that's indicated we should just wait to do it with the comprehensive
I'm just saying
rezoning?
that I would include community residential.
Okay.
If you do, then that's rural, that's,
Well, the idea of acreage is great. I just hate to take it out of the zoning context, that we use the densities we have, but.
I mean, and I think they selected, the applicant put forward the zoning districts that were included, looking at where, for example, rural lands are allowed, or where retreats are currently allowed, which do include all of those districts.
generally, those definitions involve basically one building or one unit, whereas this would be spread out.
This would be spread out, yes. And rural inns and I think retreats do allow for, both of them I think have limits on the maximum number of buildings you can have. I think rural inn can't exceed 15 buildings.
What did we do with Great Oak, with the campus effect or whatever that was, with their little lodges? Was that still under Country Inn, or,
That's still a country inn.
but with the campus, that was how we allowed those?
We decided that the country inn, yes, in what they were doing, that one did fit the expansion. Because again, the majority of their facility is a single building. So their country inn design is not that it's a series of buildings, it's that it's one main building, and they've got a couple of auxiliary.
I was with you for the Great Oak Manor. I was the one that proposed that to you. And what eventually was done is that, as we proposed that as a special exception, you limited it to 2 cottages to be allowed. So the special exception limited it to those 2 cottages.
I remember. I was just making sure what, it was a country inn or not. The Great Oak has been a few things as in the past.
Isn't the specification for rural inn, it's guest rooms, not buildings? Am I mistaken about that?
Number L,
L.
which says the rural inn may not exceed 15 buildings in AZD. The rural inn is limited to existing buildings. And some of the other lodging-based special exceptions do limit AZD to existing buildings as well.
Well, we need to send a recommendation to the commissioners. I think if we do, whatever that decision is, we either puts the comments on here and you know, give Ms. Donnelly some clarity and let so we don't, or we can send favorable or unfavorable and just leave it at that. But I think the commissioners deserve a little of this, and she deserves it too as an applicant.
I think somehow we as a board have got to work with Carla and the planning department here and Ms. Donnelly, you know, to try to put something together. There's, right now, let's just say there's a little bit of discord between everybody. But I think we need to get a little better description, a little better proposal and recommendation to send to the planning, to the county commissioners. So that Minimum, I think I guess where I go, I'm not in favor of sending a favorable recommendation. Or if we can table this and give ourselves a month and somehow we get to, either we or one of us individually or two of us work with the planning department to try to put something together and in conversation with Ms. Donnelly to see what we can come up with. But right now, to me, it's just too loose. I'm sorry. It's just,
If you'd like to table it and give us a list of things that you'd like us to address, we can do that. Happy to do that.
I'd like to see a minimum lot size myself. And
How are
10
we on
acres
the?
is fine. That's
Can we
the
just-
only heartburn I have.
We're still in discussion. We can send this, we don't have to open up the hearings or anymore if this is our discussions.
For citizen comment?
No, I meant if we do offer what he suggests, we're still in our deliberations here. So I'll make sure we're on firm ground. We don't have to open up the hearing anymore.
Right.
So they can just table this event in the regular meeting. Okay, thank you. That's all.
Or you would postpone it?
Postpone it, okay. Okay, let's assume if the applicants agree to that, I guess. But let's give them some guidance then. Acreage, what's your thoughts there?
I have to think about it a little bit, to be honest with you.
Definition of seasonal, I think that's for everybody all.
Uh,
The definition of seasonal,
Yeah.
is that kind of for you all?
Okay, we've got definitions, we've got cabins, patrons, and to make it consistent, whatever they are.
And how many units you want per acre minimum, but or maximum?
Maximum units, maximum of how many
Let's
people
wait-
in a unit?
Wait, let's get these down so we give her guidance.
I can see
Uh,
that.
Seasonal. Patrons, yes, structures, whatever they are, will be setbacks.
Should you frame it like?
Okay, that falls with,
campground
that's
setbacks?
acreage, that goes with setbacks. Something in there, I think about use needs to be, or events, when it says events, what's that mean?
Lighting noise.
Yeah,
I think I'd like to see something that deals with the density of these glamping units, you know, whether it's a half mile or a mile in between or something like that, I'm just throwing something out by now. I'm not proposing anything, but, you know, there needs to be a distance between them because, like I say, if you had a 300-acre farm and you set the whole thing up, you could put 200-300 units in there and still have spacing
well,
in
they've
between.
only asked for 15, so.
That's them. I'm just.
Well, that would be the special exception, would only allow 15.
And yeah, it's up to 15 is what it says.
Yeah.
The definition.
I think the part of 15, the acreage of the 15 within a parcel is important. I mean, that you wouldn't put 15 all over the place. that you-
Yeah, but if you put 15 on, let's say on 10 acres, and then the 10 acres right next to it puts another 15.
Well, that's a different application. It's 15.
But
For-
I'm just saying, we should somehow look at it so, unless you want them on top of each other.
They're only asking for 15, that's all.
That's them. That's them.
That's-
We're looking at the
that's-
accounting.
Say that there's one per property,
Yeah, that's what,
but
I
think
assume that,
you
yeah.
have to let the market determine if there's,
I don't disagree, but you still gotta have some limits. I mean, there's areas here you're asking, you're asking the entire county to be changed to, and there's some very large areas.
with your idea, say hypothetically, you have someone that has 300 acres, and you're afraid of them asking for 30 of them, wouldn't they have to then divide their property into 30?
They wouldn't fit under this because we're only asking for 15. Whether it should be 15 or not is a question, but that's all this text amendment would allow. It wouldn't allow any more than 15.
How about the size of the unit
Then they ask
itself?
for,
How large can they go?
where I'm going is the next 15 acres, they ask for it again. And again.
You can only do one part, it's for one application for a part,
Why can't they do 3?
because that would be 45.
There's 3 different areas.
Well, they would get turned down, I would assume, because it says 15, but that'd be, but,
That's gonna be put in there.
I don't know. We have to discuss that later. Over a beer.
You had something, James, I'm sorry.
I was just saying, what Paul's saying, that my understanding was, I don't care if you got 500 acres. That farm can only put one of the 20 acres. That's it. You can't come back and put 20 more acres and say, I'm gonna put it again. No, that's what we're putting, that's what we wanna put in writing, saying that.
Okay, I don't have a problem with that, that's where we're going.
Right. And once it's in writing, it should be every farmer in the county can only put one.
And then how does that affect their 10% rule?
Oh,
They're not
man,
sub-
I
they're-
don't want everybody to tell me.
Well, they're not sub.
Let me
that's-
see if I
they're
can
not
clarify
subdividing.
this a little
Well,
bit.
they'll be
So
subdividing.
for
They'll be
retreat, you're allowed 10 buildings on 15 acres. And for rural inn, it's 15 buildings on 20 acres. So that's kind of what we're looking
Yeah.
at. So if there's
Right.
going to be 15 cabins, and they're cabins or
living units.
pods, or, so it sounds like something a little smaller than like, you know, a guest house or cottage.
Well, we
So
need
you
a
might not
definition of
need as
pod.
much as 15 acres for something like
Yeah,
that.
she, 200.
Okay.
Well, it's not in the text amendment, though.
Yeah, we need a definition of pod too. 'Cause pod could be a shipping container.
Well, if you get over 200 square feet, you gotta put a foundation under it, don't you, Bill? Is it 200? Before you just can't plop it on the ground on top of stones? After 200, don't you have to have some sort of foundation?
It's up to the building, yeah, it's kind of the building code question. I can't,
Yeah, I think it is, but
Okay.
Be 199,
Let's see. 200 square feet, that's 10 by 20.
Are there any other questions? We've got, you got a list of things we talked about, some definitions, consistency.
Things that I have written down are, you'd like to see something that has minimum lot size or acreage. Maybe get rid of the definition, or get rid of the word seasonal out of the definition.
Maybe,
Something more, I wrote down something more specific about the units, but I'm not really I don't know that. Setbacks, although I think setbacks would be handled by just the setbacks for whatever that zoning is. And then you go up to the residence and space between them and the counties.
yeah. Okay, and then maybe a size restriction on structures, or whatever they are, whatever they're called. I think we can, you know, event structures or whatever, but, and then the may in here about the dining and bathrooms needs to be clarified somehow, that the reason it reads that you may not do it at all, like you may not have bathroom facilities.
Correct, yeah, the word may typically, the way it's intended in this is that you may do it if you choose to, you don't have to. I'm not sure how to clarify that anymore.
I think it,
That just means that you could, like, if you potentially wanted to, you could have those things.
and I think if, you're gonna have to have some, that, I think we require that for any of these things, that we would require health department approved facilities, whatever that is, whether it's a group bath or individual. No, and we don't want people to move, there's some lovely porta potties you can get, and more mobile, meaning we don't want it to turn into that, if it's, that it's got a permanence to it.
And who can dine there, the definition,
Dine,
the
yeah,
definition.
yeah. You feel it's the persons that are actually renting, would you?
I personally think I'm not gonna be cooking their food. If they wanna bring food and they barbecue or whatever they wanna do, and that's why we said in the kitchen. You know, I'm not gonna be providing them food. It's gonna be a do-it-yourself. So whether they order food or bring their own, or like if they were camping.
But this, I guess, what we have now could potentially allow for what, a building with a kitchen in it?
That's why I said,
Yeah.
communal kitchen. Again, because I don't want the pot itself to be too much. That's why I wanted to do the bathrooms separate. You're not talking about a big amount of space, and I just think it would work out better to run it
So we wanted to restrict those to people that are actually leasing the structures.
We can,
That's what, that was confusing, that you may have a dining facility as if you would invite other people in to that.
I don't mean to throw a wrench in your discussion, but I'm just kind of wondering, it sort of sounds more like the campground definition, this kind of a use, which allows for cabins.
we don't have campgrounds other than the kind of non-conforming ones that exist.
Okay,
So we have camps,
that's right.
which specifically do not allow for recreational vehicles. And if you look at that definition, it's a very specific definition. So, yes, trust me, we tried to find a way to make it easy. We want to support businesses and ideas that people have.
Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
I just wanted to add to the discussion, or defer to council on this, it's a Maryland law, but just as a framework, special exceptions are intended to be uses that are permitted uses in the district, but there may be issues regarding the location or the specific location proposed for that use. And so conditions often sort of address things about the location, so far from this, so far from that. Some special exceptions have no conditions at all. If they go to the board, there's not a list. And some are very, very specific. It's sort of almost, give the outside edges of what the use looks like and you have to fit inside it. So there's a lot of range, but I think in order for the Board of Appeals to be able to review this, sort of focusing on what are the locational issues that need to be addressed for a specific proposal in those zoning districts where it is allowed.
Thank you.
Right, it's a middle ground between what's permitted and permitted uses and what are not permitted uses, and where it's helpful for the planning commission to provide recommendations, in this case to the county commissioners. It's with the thought that the Board of Appeals will be reviewing this, but you have planning expertise seeing everything in the county, including, being part of the comprehensive rezoning. So I feel like the input, as far as what standards, your input suggesting what the Board of Appeals might consider as part of its special exception approval is important.
I agree.
Wouldn't part of that approval process, though, involve site plan, which in turn we would get anyway?
You would get that after the special exception.
But the Board of
approval.
Appeals had already
No.
ruled that it could happen?
You get it as part of the special exception request,
They
the
come
site
in-
plan or the
She's
concept
asking for a
plan.
text amendment. If she comes in to use this text amendment, we'll get a
Right,
site
and
plan.
then we get the site plan, so the Board of Appeals would be
And as long as the Board of Appeals approves that use, that special exception use, then you get the site plan back to get into the very specifics like parking and landscaping and.
Typically, you get the concept site plan with the special exception application, and then the applicant is directed to come back for final site plan.
After when?
After the Board of Appeals has approved the use. So somebody applies for a special exception, they bring us a concept site plan, we bring it to you, you make your recommendation to the Board of Appeals. If the Board of Appeals approves it, then it comes back to the Planning Commission to get final approval of the site plan.
Thank you.
I just, don't need that right now.
Well, the applicant has agreed to let us table the application. Do you feel you have sufficient information to come back to us, or if any?
I hope so, and I'll have discussions with Carla about how we go forward with it. What is it, first week of August? I'm not gonna be.
Glamping?
No, I'll be in a very expensive house.
No.
But it'll have a bathroom.
Well, maybe that'll be.
September?
Um,
I'm trying to make sure we can run
We have a timeline for the planning commission, which is if you
60
don't
days.
send back your recommendation within 60 days.
Can we do August, or we can just send someone else? Is that okay if we just send a representative? I mean, I can.
uh,
You mean someone other than Mr. Young? Yeah, and that's up to you, yeah, yeah. That's up to you. Mm-hmm.
We're good?
We will bring this back to the August meeting.
All right. Thank you, Carla. Thank you all.
Can I make a request? Is there a way we can get what we're looking at quicker than a couple days before the meeting, so we have the opportunity to at least think about it and go over it? I know Campbell does his best to get it out late Friday afternoon, but it would be, if Ms. Donnelly is going to send us stuff, if there's something that's put together earlier or sooner, so that at least we can get a chance to review it and maybe make a comment back to the planning board, the planning
I'm
department.
not so sure we want to be doing that.
Yeah.
We meet in public, and we deliberate in public.
Well, then, I just would request that if we get the information sooner, I'd like to see it sooner. I mean, to sit here and have to make a decision after looking at it for 20 minutes, I'm sorry, it's just
Well, we do get the packet 5 days before.
Yeah.
I think we,
Monday?
No, we usually get
Friday.
it Friday before the planning commission, always Friday.
6:30 on Friday.
It's been a lot earlier.
I think things could come out quicker.
He told me this package.
all right, well, thank you very much, Ms. Donnelly, thank you. Hope you can get something better straightened out. Thank you, staff.
So
Oh, go
I
ahead.
think you need a motion
Oh, to
to
table?
postpone it
Or
until
postpone?
the next,
What is the
for
proper, is it postpone
consideration.
or table?
Postpone it till the next
Can
meeting.
I entertain a motion to postpone the decision on this,
I make a motion, we postpone it
Till-
until,
the August
August.
4th meeting?
yeah, whatever date it is.
I second.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Thank you. All right, our next application is Chop Tank Electric Cooperative. It's a concept site plan review for the expansion of an electrical subdivision, and this is just a planning commission review. Is that Mark? Oh, good. Thank you. Good.
Good afternoon. As was mentioned, Chop Tank Electric Cooperative is requesting a concept site plan review for the expansion of existing electrical substation. With this expansion includes additional 38,756 square feet of gravel. There is one existing driveway. We are proposing to put 2 additional driveways to this parcel. In addition to these additional entryways, they're going to have a new transformer, substation structure, and a substation regulator. The idea behind this is to convert from a transmission break-in station to an electric step-down station to reduce voltage, provide power delivery to members of the Chop Tank Electric Cooperative. In regards to the relevant issues, Kent County land use ordinance does require minimum front yard setback on non-primary roads in the employment center, which is zone in that district. Is as approved during subdivision review, otherwise the setback for primary roads is 100 feet. The applicant proposing to expand this existing substation. The parcel is not on a primary road. In June 1989 subdivision, which the parcel was created, they did not establish a front yard setback. includes the use shall not create highway hazards, visual clutter insofar as practicable. Any use and employments in the district shall have access at least 3,000 feet from any highway strip, which is two or more access points within 3,000 feet of each other, insofar as possible. Planning Commission may waive this requirement when the Commission finds all of the following. Proposal complies with the spirit and intent of the land use ordinance and comprehensive plan. The waiver will not cause substantial detriment to adjacent or neighboring property. The waiver will not create a safety hazard or increase traffic congestion. And the waiver is minimally necessary to relieve a practical difficulty and is not sought for use of convenience proper increase. Our comments are as follows. The applicant provides comment, there will be no waste for byproducts created. So they address all the material components and chemical solids. They also provide comment that two proposed additional entrances along with existing entrance are necessary for construction, maintenance, and operation of the electrical substation. Staff recommends that the planning commission waive the requirement that the use established shall not create or be continuation of highway strip developed multiple access points. In other words, we are recommending you waive that limitation. In regards to the
Sorry to interrupt. We're not hearing anything online.
I'm sorry, we'll look into that.
I beg your pardon. I thought the mic was on. I will not repeat everything.
That's better. I think it needs to be closer, I guess, to hear.
I'm very sorry about that. So in regards to the entryways, proposed entryways, we are recommending that the Planning Commission waive that restriction. In regards to forest conservation, which would be required, parcel that's less than 15% of its net tract acreage and forest cover shall be afforested 15% of its net tract area. This property has no existing forest or woodlands, but because of safety and maintenance risk around the overhead electrical currents or circuits, on-site afforestation is not possible. The applicant agrees to pay a fee in lieu at a rate of 30.5 cents per square foot to the Forest Conservation Fund. Development or redevelopment of land for commercial uses shall provide for appropriate stormwater management measures that control or manage such developments. The applicant has included in the site plan conceptual proposed grades, erosion, sediment control measures, and stormwater best management practices, which will be further detailed for preliminary and final review. In regards to design standards, which address site access, circulation, floodplain landscaping, screening, lighting, etc. Our comments are as follows. There's one existing entrance, two additional entrances into the expanded portion are proposed, as mentioned before. The site shall be designed to prevent awkward or dangerous flow. The applicant is requesting the front yard setback be reduced so that the configuration of the proposed structures may be arranged to increase safety and ease of operations. The front yard should be landscaped and shall be maintained in neat and attractive condition. The applicant proposes to install a row of 5 to 6 foot tall Leland cypress trees spaced 8 feet apart on the exterior of the fencing of the new development. As screening, as Leland cypress trees are not native to Maryland, staff recommends that an alternative evergreen such as eastern red cedar be installed. In regards to site plan review, there are a number of conditions and requirements. Our comments are as follows. The proposal is consistent with the comprehensive plan, conforms with all applicable rules and regulations. Areas for vehicular flow appear to be adequate for the use proposed. Demands on public services and infrastructure are reasonable, and there will be no undue disturbance by excessive or unreasonable noise, smoke, vapors, fumes, etc. There's no sewage or refuse disposal proposed. No vegetation is to be removed, and a vegetative perimeter screening is proposed. Staff recommendations are as follows. In order to receive preliminary site plan approval, the applicant must address and or submit the following outstanding items. Citizen participation plan report, preliminary sediment erosion control and stormwater management plans, front, side, and rear elevation of all proposed structures, official emissions of plans to MDOT and SHH for review, details on signs and lighting, and revised landscape screening. At this meeting, the Planning Commission should consider the following: the request for reduced front yard setback and waiving the restriction on approximate entryways, which is the highway strips mentioned.
Thank you, Mark. Is there any correspondence?
No correspondence.
Are the applicants or the representatives available to speak to this application, if they choose?
Yes, sir. My name is Bob Beadle. I'm with Our Grid Power. I'm the owner's engineer for Chop Tank Electric Cooperative, and I'm happy to address any questions about the substation, including give a little more background if the board would like to hear it.
Can you give your full name and address for the record, please?
Yes, sir. My full name is Robert Shoyan Beadle, and my address is 3529 Song Sparrow Drive in Wake Forest, North Carolina.
Great. Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead.
All right, just a little bit of background about the substation itself. It is an existing site. It's what we would call a breaker station, and Chop Tank Electric Cooperative is looking at some additional construction to help it serve some of the local load. There's a lot of agricultural and residential load in the area, and having it develop into a full substation will help them more efficiently serve all the members that they have in that area. I know there's a few questions about some setbacks. The substation design is governed by a code called the National Electric Safety Code, and it sets certain minimum requirements, minimum clearances for everything, and those are intended to keep some of the workers safe. Typically, we would look at those as minimums. We might even add a little bit more room just to give some good operational clearance. The 100-foot setback makes it almost impossible to kind of make this work with all the clearances. That's why we've asked for a little bit of additional room. We're not intending to go right up near the fence, but what we've asked for in terms of a slight decrease to that 100 feet will help us do that, and will help us meet code and then also operate safely and still leave quite a bit of space there between equipment and the road. The other thing, the additional fence, typically there's some large equipment that goes into the station, mainly on construction. Some of those transformers can weigh up to 100,000 pounds. So you can imagine having more than one gate opening makes it a little easier to bring trucks and construction equipment in. Once the station is constructed, there's typically not a whole lot of activity unless there's maintenance work that needs to be done or some kind of emergency outage situation. But even having electrical line trucks that the co-op uses and have that be such that they could bring it in and one gate and drive out the other makes it a whole lot easier to be able to bring people and equipment and do service to the station. So that's main reasons that we're asking for the exceptions that we are.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone in the audience who speak to this application? Or anyone else online? Okay, well, this is a concept review, so we need to give the applicant some thoughts on the preliminary site plan and is the request for the reduced setbacks and the restriction of the entryway.
On that straight stretch of road, I wouldn't think that the setback reduction would affect anything, especially since they're going to screen it out front, and it's a long stretch in there with, I don't think the additional entrances are a hazard, plus the main traffic's coming off the gravel pit and they have to turn left when they come out.
Right.
They're not allowed to come down this, shouldn't be allowed to come down this portion of the road. That's my own.
I agree. And I think the entranceways are mostly, from what I've seen at the other substations, mostly for maintenance work. Once these things are running, they're not too many people in and out of them anyway. So, appreciate the native plantings for the landscaping.
Just a comment on the landscaping. If the landscaping is the little green dots that go around here, it only goes halfway around. Would you be willing to landscape all the way around it?
Well, we would if required. There's agricultural address kind of right behind there, and they would have a crop that would be growing as well. So that extends for quite a large distance behind that. We were mainly just looking to make it a view shed kind of cover for people who could see it from the road. But if the commission desires to have us screened all the way around, that's certainly
Well,
something that we could do.
I don't know whether we are or not. I was just curious because I see it halfway around. And it's just, around the new portion and you let the old portion go. I mean, I was up by there the other day. I realized it's wide open. And there are some heavy trucks coming up and down that road that go to the property next door. There were several, when I was there for a few minutes, and there were several 18-wheel trucks come down through there, so. And the other concern I have really is why the 3 entrances, but, where it's located, that's probably not, it's probably not a concern at this point. I mean, I doubt if there is that much traffic, but I guess me, I just don't understand why you need 3 entrances versus just 2. I can see an ingress and egress, but the third one in the middle, I mean, they're awfully close together. It's not a big piece of property.
Well, there may be times where a mobile substation would need to go in if there was a transformer failure. So I think they were just, Chop Tank was kind of just looking at that from a maintenance standpoint. One of the fence entries is existing right now is really
Right.
for the existing equipment. They were sort of looking at the additional 2 for the equipment that they would be adding as part of the substation.
Because you're going to gravel the whole place, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Anyone else on the commission have any thoughts about, to make this, help the applicant develop his site plan? Hearing none, I think we're okay. Is the applicant satisfied with what they heard?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Our next application is another concept site plan review. This is for Gillespie Precast LLC, Morgan Creek Land Holdings LLC, storage yard expansion and concrete manufacturing. And Mark is back.
Do we have to approve the concept plans? Or is it-
No, we don't vote, it's concept. That's-
This is a concept plan for a revised proposal for something that was reviewed previously as a concept preliminary plan. This is for Gillespie Precast, LLC, Morgan Creek Land Holdings along Morgan Neck Road. Previously, they had proposed to put expansion of the contractor's yard and place a storage building on site, and that was reviewed by this body. They've reviewed their business plan or objectives and are now proposing with this revision, the same kind of expansion of the yard itself. They're also looking to increase the size of that storage structure from its previous 80-foot by 200-foot, it's a larger structure itself. They also include 2 200-foot by 81-foot concrete manufacturing plants to be installed during separate phases, to construct an enlarged storage building, and to install aggregate bins and a ramp, and a crushed concrete pile, and to construct the new entrance, which was in the previous application as well. In regards to this revised application, we do have some comments. Many of them are similar to the previous application that was presented before. But in regards to some of the standards, we are asking for a certified engineer's report be resubmitted that addresses the new additions to this proposal. So an updated version of that. As previous application, this property be exempt from the forest conservation requirement because there's so much which is in a critical area. As previously agreed upon, the applicant is proposing or is willing to put in to mitigate an area equal to 15% of the LOD through forest conservation, afforestation, and landscape screening for a total of 2.78 acres. And regards to site access, this was previously discussed. This was presented before. I think Campbell handed out a letter from State Highway Association that they had approved that entryway from the previous proposal. Mr. Sharon shared with me a correspondence from those as well, and he can testify to this. He asked if there would be any change in regards to the new proposal that's presented, and it's not determined that there would be any necessary differences that would not be approved because of this new proposal. I guess there are comments in regards to some of the design components and requirements. Adequate spacing seems to be provided to ensure on-site circulation for the proposed use, as had been before. For Phase 1 development, 10 parking spaces are proposed. Handicap parking is not currently proposed, and there's no indication of a bicycle spot, which would be required for the land use ordinance. We are asking that there be some revision with the site plan itself in regards to Phase 2 in terms of the second production building that would be constructed, and communicated this with Kevin, and I think they're certainly willing to provide that. In regards to the standards for the site plan review, we have the following comments. That the narrative be updated to include the newly proposed components. That we receive the elevations for all of the proposed structures as well. And staff has the following recommendations. The applicant has requested that preliminary and final review be combined. Staff supports this request. In order to receive final site plan approval, the applicant must address and/or submit the following outstanding items, which would be a certified engineer's report addressing industrial performance standards inclusive of the newly proposed structures, an updated narrative in accordance with procedure and standards, front, side, rear elevations of proposed equipment storage building and concrete manufacturing plants, including lighting, proposed new private well and required parking to accommodate Phase 1 and Phase 2 of the development to be included in the site plan, the approval of SHA, which has been provided, updated citizen participation report, and approval of erosion sediment control and stormwater management plan, and then submission of all required sureties for stormwater management, sediment, erosion control, and landscaping. Thank you.
Thank you. Is the applicant or a representative here wish to speak to this application? Please state your name and address for the records.
Kevin Sharon, DMS Associates, the business address is PO Box 80, Centerville, Maryland. Andrew Gillespie, Gillespie Precast, 100 Dixon Drive.
You affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you, sir. Sit down.
As Mark pointed out, we were before you, I think a couple months ago, seeking a combined concept and preliminary for the storage yard and storage building. Since that time, Gillespie has decided that a precast plant would be beneficial at that location rather than just hauling product back and forth or taking it to there for storage. So we've revised the plan, came in with strictly a concept plan at staff's recommendation because it's a bit of a change. So just looking for your input on the use, as Mark pointed out, the footprint of the storage yard and the impervious cover does not change. The stormwater management's already been designed, so that will not change. It would just be a bit of a change of use to actually have the manufacturing on site. We have, as Mark pointed out, we have received state highway approval for the entrance, and we've also sent out, as of today, letters to the citizens that we invited to an informational meeting before. We sent out a letter stating that this was a change and included a copy of the site plan, or one sheet of the site plan, and gave our mailing address, email address, and phone number if there were any With that, we'll open up any, or try to answer any questions that you might have about the change in the game plan.
Thank you. Anyone on the commission here for some questions for them, or comments?
Well, I still have a problem with two entrances out there. That's, it's just I think cars, pickup trucks can go in there enough, but if, large trucks pulling out of there with a load of precast on there, if he's swinging towards Chestertown, he's probably going across the eastbound lane a little bit. If he's swinging towards Millington, he's taking up both lanes you're going to be over that hill and on top of them. But State Highway says it's no problem. But
Yeah, I'm baffled by that. I mean, I think it's a wonderful business run, but those trucks come out of there loaded, and that hill there, you only got a couple hundred yards before you're at the end of that farm. I mean, you're there fast, 55 miles an hour. But the state, I don't doubt there, but I just don't see it. I hope they, I would have thought maybe they'll put one of those big signs up, traffic ahead, or, truck entrance or something like that, but that could be, and it's probably the other way too, because you can't see when you go around those Lelands on the other side. It's not a great spot, I'm not saying it's, but the current spot does have the most visibility. But I was surprised when we got the letter. I said, wow, that, we would have thought they'd had some questions about that, or speed limit, but we can't, I couldn't get on there right now to read if do they make comments?
What's that?
It says approved, but then it gives a link.
There was.
But I couldn't get on.
Comments that came out originally, we responded to them, and then this is the approval letter that we got June 30th.
And the afforestation area, what do we end up planting there? Just seedlings? Is that all that's going to go in there?
I'm not sure that that's been determined yet. It's not required, so it might be seedlings to go in.
Well, screening's required. And, I mean, the trees that are there that you're showing along that Morgan Creek Farm, that's their trees.
Right, well, we're not taking credit for it.
But, I mean, plus you're popping up over that hill, and the first thing you're going to see when you pop up over that hill is this piles of concrete and the buildings. You're not going to see that truck pulling out there. So.
Okay, we'll take that.
I mean, I think Bill's comments, because, as you know, I only drive by there about 6 times a day. But, the facility, I mean, it's construction yard runs fine. I think additional screening, it's a wet area there they didn't take, and they've never been replaced, but hopefully I think that would help the neighborhood there to, just drive by it. And I think by moving the concrete pile to the back will probably minimize it too. But, it'd be nice to beef that up as much as you can for that nice scenic entrance to Chestertown there.
How about the buildings on there?
We'll be providing
What we got-
architectural
You're
elevations.
going to provide it, okay.
I mean, they're gonna be industrial looking buildings, probably very similar to what.
It'll look like the contractor's yard with the bins up on a hill, same effect.
Yeah, the yard you got then in closer to town, I think wasn't there a building proposed there to be built?
It's already been built.
Okay, but that had nothing to do with the manufacturing of the
Oh, and
concrete.
you're talking about most recently at the Brickyard?
Correct.
That was an expansion of the yard, and yes, there's a building proposed there as well.
Was that just for equipment, or is that for construction of the concrete, precast
No,
concrete?
it's not a construction, it's just for storage. It was
It's for
approved
storage, okay. And the precast concrete proposed, or where it's proposed to be built actually, let's just talk about both the buildings at this point. Where you're proposing that, just out of curiosity, how big are those buildings? Just a regular 30 feet, like 30 feet high or something, or?
Taller than that, how tall they buildings are. Are you familiar with the current operation at?
I know a little bit, and those buildings aren't too terribly tall, but then you got 3 towers there. You gonna have towers out there? Is that storage for?
It hasn't been designed yet, but potentially.
That potentially could happen out there also then. So you're gonna have something, how tall are those towers? 80, 100 feet easily?
Sure, maybe 80 feet.
I mean, I realize they sit up on a hill a little bit too, so it's a little hard from the road, you know, driving by to tell exactly how high they are, but you're gonna have towers like that also
It would be a
on the
similar
site.
operation. That,
Okay.
yes, it would be a similar
So
operation to what our.
consequently, you'll have full-time workers out there,
Yes.
which in turn, there was preserved land or reserved land for septic, as well as you're gonna have your own septic out there, and all that'll be laid out on the.
Right, yeah, we'll be working with the health department after concept review and lay out the septic system and the new
Okay,
well.
yeah, because I see you made it go away on the one map that we
Yeah,
have,
but,
so.
well, there were several approved septic areas on the farm, so the one that was gonna be where the storage yard expansion
Right.
is, that, we just sacrificed that one.
Yeah, no, I'm just curious, I see the changes and
Right, yeah,
didn't want you to forget them.
yeah, we will add that.
And the landscaping all the way around, because you do, actually, when I was at the vets the other day on High Street, I heard a loud bang come from over in the direction of your plant. Does that happen often? And the reason I asked that, it sounded like a big lid closing, only it was quite loud. I mean, obviously, I heard it, I was out walking my dog, waiting for the vet, you know, and that's, what, 400 or 500 yards away from your
That's a little
property.
bit different operation. That's ready mix where this is precast, so.
Okay, I'm.
That's outdoor, a lot more outdoor activity where
Okay.
this operation would be all indoor.
Okay, and the reason I'm asking, well, I didn't know if it came from those towers or not. And the reason I'm asking is next door, you've got a farm, you know, you've got an equestrian farm where conceivably you could have people riding, you know, and skittish horses, that type of thing, and a bang like that, if that was consistent or if it happened often, could be a problem. I mean, you know, noise can happen, but I just didn't know how consistent that loud bang was. And if that's part of your plant, and hopefully it wasn't one of your trucks falling over the hill or something. But it did happen.
Yeah, that doesn't occur.
I'm just curious. I happened to hear it, and I know what's next door over here. And granted, you're going from commercial or industrial out into farmland, but you gotta be a little concerned about, the neighbors, and that carried quite a ways. So, just a thought as to, but the towers you don't have proposed on it, where would you?
As the building and the plant evolve in their design, we'll include that in our site plan.
Where do you think they might go now?
Next to the
It would
sites.
be- So there's two buildings shown, phase one,
Right.
phase two, would be directly between the two, is my guess, without actually having final design.
Okay, what's in that? That's the raw material for the precast?
Yes. Yep. Yes.
Okay, but it's just not showing on there. It's just a,
You you didn't mean landscape all the way, when you said that all the way around, did you?
I'm sorry?
You said something about landscaping it all around.
no, I see the landscape. I was just looking at the right-hand edge, you know, as to what, and granted, it's their trees, the farm's trees, or the equestrian person's trees, but
Okay, I didn't mean,
yeah.
not that
no,
we're
no,
suggesting we
I
go
wasn't-
around the whole.
I really didn't have any comments about the landscape.
Okay.
We'll wait till site plan on that one. Got to make it look nice. Get rid of that, quite honestly, that pile of concrete, you're moving that to the back, right? That crushed
A little
pile?
further back, it's not going a whole lot further back, but yes.
That would be nice. I mean, only because, like I say, and I think I made the comment when you were in here the last time for the others, that is the entrance, one of few entranceways to Chestertown. Trying to make Chestertown, you know, the whole idea is to make the town look nice and, you know, just to make it look nice. So it needs to look good as you're coming in. It needs to be something that all the citizens need to be proud of. And I'm sure you do too. So that's what we're, you know, it's a small part of it, but
We don't want to move the concrete too far back. It could interfere with the waterfowl hunting back there. That's a concern too.
the what?
The waterfowl hunting back there.
Well,
If
isn't
that
there-
happens, I don't know that it
Isn't there another
does.
building way back there that's Delmarva? I see a sign on there. It says something about,
They're just renting.
There
the
they rent
property.
storage yards.
I'm sorry?
They have storage yard, they're renting.
Okay, and that's way in the back yet from,
Yeah, that's right at the
They
front.
leave their holes
in the
out
front,
front.
but isn't there a building way out in back?
There's an existing storage building in the back.
That's for the workers.
I know there's a storage building way back, that's why I was just, Google aerial view shows everything, that's great.
Any other comments for anyone out here? Anyone, Jim, anyone? Anyone in the public have any questions or comments for the applicant? I don't know if there's anyone online, I don't think so, but, yeah, I think,
This is what I was going to right there.
yeah, that's where that's part of, farm operations. That's like, beef up, do the landscape, I mean, it really would, you did a nice job on the other one, so hopefully we do that there, and hope State Road's correct, and it's a safe place. I do.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you, guys.
Just one more question, it's nothing to do with the site plan. Are you planning more employees, planning for, enlarging the operation?
Yes.
Add more jobs?
Yes.
You are?
They got a sign out there, Paul, if you want to come out and see them.
Oh, I'm way too old for that.
See ya.
All right, take care.
Our next application is for Kent Manor Green LLC. This is a variance for the front, rear, and side yard setbacks in the AZD district, and this is a recommendation to the Board of Appeals. And before I start, I'd like to affirm that I have a business relationship with the owners of Kent Manor Green for years on different farm properties. I don't feel it will impact my decision on this at all, and I feel I can act fairly to the ordinance and the applicant. Go ahead, Carla.
So, Kent Manor Green LLC is requesting a variance to enable construction of a waste management structure on a 20-acre parcel that sits in the center of their farm located on Augustine Lemon Highway in the second election district. A lot of feedback. The 152-foot by 75-foot building will be 247 feet from the front property line, 400 feet from the east property line, and 290 feet from the rear property line. And as I noted, the surrounding farm is also owned by Kent Manor Grain. The variance standards are listed in the staff report, the staff comments. The variance will not cause substantial detriment to neighboring properties or change the character of the district. The closest dwellings not owned by the Miller family are over 1,500 feet from the proposed building, and the closest church or public building is over 4,000 feet away. The request is consistent with the comprehensive plan, which promotes Kent County as an agriculturally friendly county and promotes the use of best management practices. The practical difficulty is due to the size and shape of the parcel. As noted in the history on this, there was originally a 3.188 acre parcel that was subdivided in 1991, and there was a Board of Appeals decision for a variance related to some grain storage bins on that parcel, and I've included some information from that decision. In 2016, that 3-acre parcel was increased to 20 acres in order to meet the definition of a farm, which allows for agricultural structures as accessory to the farm. The Millers have used the location of the proposed building for short-term storage of manure. The construction of a waste management structure is considered a best management practice and will allow for better management of manure storage throughout the year. Staff recommends forwarding a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Are the applicants or the representatives here that wish to testify? Please state your name and address for the record.
Charles Miller, 14080 Gibble Park Road, Fayetteville, Maryland.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thanks, Charlie. Grab that mic, too, a little closer. What can you tell us that Carla hasn't?
What's that?
Yeah.
Oh, there's nothing to really tell. We deal with chick manure, we've been stockpiling outside for many years. And we have to start stockpiling chick manure in August to use in the spring time. We're not allowed to spread it in the fall by the Maryland regs. So leaving it outside creates an environmental problem, and it makes it a hazard, not a hazard, but a problem for us spreading it in the spring because it's all wet and nasty from sitting outside all the time. So we decided that we'd like to go ahead and put a building up to store the chicken manure in, be more environmental environmental friendly, and to make it easier for us to handle the manure.
Good.
No,
That's it.
yeah, we'd appreciate it, we could get a variance to put it up, that's what we're looking for.
Good. Good. Does anyone on the board have any questions or comments for the Millers?
I don't.
Go ahead.
I don't.
I was gonna say, just curious, having a separate lot on the farm, why would you do that?
Well, it started back in, I don't remember the year, but my dad, when 4 M's, well, we were 3 M's, started farming. He thought that we could not buy and sell grain without having a parcel separate from the farm. And then he put the rest of the farm in easement at the time, but didn't take any money. So then we put up more buildings in our area there, and we needed more room than that, so we decided to enlarge it to 20 acres, so we could put up more buildings there to do our operation. As you can see on the picture there, we have quite a few
Right.
buildings.
Right, you get, well, and again, I mentioned before about Google aerial view, got a good view of your farm.
Yeah, it's really neat how you can see that.
And I did drive by there the other day too, you know.
And see our tractors?
Oh, absolutely, I get a kick out of that. You used to have one, you got 2 out there now.
Yeah, but we have more in the barns.
Do you
That's why
really?
I put up more barns.
But but I was curious about that lot, because to me, well, I'll tell you the way I look at it is with that all being, if it was all one lot, and let's say you decided you wanted to sell the business off, you know, live in your house, live there and you wanted to sell the business off, it's a landlocked piece of property.
He has a right of way.
Right away.
You got a right away. I know everybody else here likes right of ways. I don't like right of ways.
Yeah.
Only because it can, to me, it can create, if you got a hassle with, let's say somebody bought that as a business and you did not like the business and the right of way goes right by your house,
That would be
It creates
more
a po-
detrimental to us to try to sell the property
it creates a,
than the thing. Their goal is not to sell the property.
and, well, yeah, but I'm just looking down the road. That's, possibilities. I'm not saying other than that. Because also too, I'm looking at it as like, banks, are they amenable to loaning money to people, let's say, to buy it if it's a landlocked piece of property?
Well, I've never checked
That,
that out.
Well, it's not landlocked legally.
Well-
It's got a right of way. That's,
Yeah,
it's all agreed to. It's recorded. I mean, they can't take it away. It's,
it's just my own personal feeling. I'm sorry. And also too, you've got more room to enlarge the property to meet the setbacks, but why,
More can enlarge the property?
you could, you've got,
We can't enlarge it anymore
you can't enlarge it anymore.
because of the rules, right, 10% rule. When we had 200 acres, when we
Right.
acquired that, set off that 20 acres there, that took all our rights, we can't do it anymore, right? I'm not a zoning specialist, but that's the way I
Well,
understand it.
I'll tell you, I have a hard time understanding that 10% rule too, I'll be very honest.
Yeah.
Well, you've had it explained to you for 3 years.
Yeah, I'm still,
And my suspicion,
Still
we can't,
confused.
we can't do anything else with our property but sell it as it is.
right.
right. Well-
I think, from listening to you, I think that you're doing a good job as far as your plan, what you want to do. It's easy, it serves the purpose of the environmental stage and everything. And I think, from the manure of the chickens, what you plan on doing, I think it's a great idea. And I don't see no problem with that at all. I think it helps you, it helps the environmental, it helps everybody. And I look at it as a great move myself.
Thank you.
I think that's the workings of emotion there, Jim.
Right. I just have one more question, and this has nothing to do with the site plan as much as on the building. You got the underground piping, is that for when you put the
Now,
manure in, does that collect the moisture underneath for some reason? And where
No.
does it go?
That was turned down, our final plan, he didn't get it on the day's plan, it was supposed to be, we're gonna do a 60-foot grass off the east side of the building, will be no underground. Have to have 60-foot grass filter strip on each side of the building, with 12 downspouts on each side. That's what Dan Madison said he would approve.
I'm sorry, put a,
Stormwater management.
I'm sorry?
He's addressing how they're gonna
Handle the water.
Right,
Yeah, the water will come off and go on a 60-foot grass strip on each side.
on each side of the barn.
To slow the
Right,
water
to a
down.
natural
Yeah,
grade area.
and to filter the water off and slow it down.
Okay. And that water comes out of the manure, or is that
Yeah.
off the building?
Off the building.
Okay. No, I just didn't know if the manure itself created its own, own fluids that may have to be collected.
That's why they're putting it in a building.
Well, I know, I realize that, but it's still,
Yeah, when it gets rained
some
on,
of
it's
it's
kind of
gonna,
melts in a pile and,
yeah, but
runs down.
it still decomposes to some extent.
yeah.
That's-
And once
inside.
it gets wet, it does decompose more.
Well, don't let the roof leak.
Yeah, we hope not.
All right.
I think
No
Jim
more
started a
questions.
motion, I don't know
Huh?
if, you started a motion there, James. Ray, you want to finish it?
I'll make it.
Oh, go ahead then.
I make a motion that we send a favorable recommendation to the Board of Appeals, grant setback variance from the required 600 feet of 353 feet from the front yard, 200 feet setback from the side yard, and a 310-foot setback from the rear yard in order to construct a 152-foot by 75-foot waste management structure. We find that the variance will not cause a substantial detriment to adjacent or neighboring property, that the variance will not change the character of the neighborhood or district, that the variance is consistent with the comprehensive plan and the general intent of this ordinance, and that the practical difficulty is due to the size and shape of the parcel.
Before anyone seconds, do we have any public comment on this?
I didn't, I asked, maybe I thought I did, but,
Just want to make sure.
well, while we're still before discussion, is there any public comment? I did ask online, I thought I said
Okay,
everyone.
I'm sorry.
Gary, you don't want to disagree with him, do you? No, I don't want to. Okay, all right, we have a motion on the table, have a second?
Second.
All right, and any discussion? Call for the question, all in favor, James? Ray?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Bill Crowding?
Aye.
Bill Sutton? And I'll vote with affirmative. So we'll send that on, and good luck getting that building up.
Thank you for your time.
You take care, guys. Our next, we're in general discussion, but we need to, we have our minutes from the last meeting, the June meeting. I hope everyone's reviewed them. If they have, I'll entertain a motion, or if there are any corrections or comments, let's make them. If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Yeah, well, that's 280, well, they put that as 290.
It just sounded different.
Did you want to have a discussion
you want to discuss
about
before it? I mean,
the more abbreviated version of them? Or,
Or for the next minutes, or do you want you to do,
yeah, in general,
in general?
going
yeah.
forward, yeah.
Yeah, going forward. Yeah, I guess I thought I would, yeah, we'll do that after this, or to approve them. I mean, are there any questions or comments or corrections, edits to the minutes of the last meeting?
I make a motion that we approve the minutes from the last meeting, as presented.
Okay, second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, great. Yes, go ahead. Cindy has some thoughts on minutes. We had talked about the last meeting about clarifying, maybe Bill, who's going to weigh in first?
Well, I think the minutes that you have, you give an example of what Cindy was looking to assist you with.
Right, so you may have noticed they were a little shorter than they might have otherwise been. The most notable area was with respect to comment from the public, where we have summarized in the past what people said, or even maybe quoted. Now we're just listing who spoke in opposition or who spoke in support. And that really is the better route, because minutes are intended to reflect, to record what actions, what the board has done, what the commission has done, not what people said. That's not the purpose of minutes per Robert's rules, which our bylaws adopt as the rules to follow. There are no other requirements in the commission's bylaws addressing minutes, other than that, you know, you'd have them, but there's no specification as to the content. If you want, you could, and even the minutes with respect to applications before you were more abbreviated. If you wanted, you could specify that you wanted maybe just a brief statement about issues that the Planning Commission members addressed, like, you know, Mr. Ruge asked about parking, or Mr. Crowding asked about landscaping, and a very brief statement about what an applicant or an applicant's representative might have said, just 1 or 2 sentences. Otherwise, then the clerk is left with just cherry picking what everyone's saying and discussing. It gets long. It could be, you know, it could be not complete. You could have members of the public, you know, having comments about your minutes or what they said in response to an application. So it's just better to have them shorter. It's certainly easier for staff. And I just wanted, yeah.
Well, Cindy, are all these meetings recorded? So they get on, what is it?
YouTube.
YouTube, and can see them. My gosh, I can't get any more thorough than that, I would assume.
Well, that was the next thing I was going to say, is that even the Open Meetings Act has provided that you can use the live recordings as long as they're live and archived as your minutes. But I think it's better to have written minutes in addition.
I agree.
The public can see it. You can easily research what happened. They're posted. They have to be posted before the next meeting. And the Open Meetings Act also specifies just that the minutes reflect each item that the body considered, the action the body took, and each vote that was recorded. So we do that. So if you approve these minutes, and if you like them in that format, we can keep going with that. Or if you want to add a little more detail about maybe what the commission member said, or an applicant said, or an engineer said with respect to an application, we could do that, just a shorter summary of what we have been doing.
But we can always amend that the next, if we felt that something, the heart of something wasn't captured in the minutes, we could add, we can always amend, or ask to amend, recommend amend to them based on the tape. Thank you. I agree. We have a tape of them, you know. Got to get Mark to speak into the mic, but other than that, we're fine.
Do you want to add a little more detail about the applications? I'm not suggesting that, you know, that would be the thing to do. It's your choice. Okay.
I do too. Use the same format.
I'm okay, as long as.
So, yeah, I guess-
We always can review,
We can
and if
change
we
it.
feel that something was missed, you know,
Right.
that we
Right.
added to it. or-
So I guess it would be appropriate to make a motion that the Planning Commission is going to request that minutes be shorter in the format that you've just reviewed.
Yeah, just
Going
maybe more
forward.
concise, not that, I
More
hate to think that we're
concise.
just trying to shorten them, which should be the effect.
Right,
but-
more
but we're
concise,
just
reflect the
reflect the
actions
actions and
of the
the
commission.
tape. Yeah. Well, I make a motion that the minutes continue to, or should be concise and reflect the actions of the meeting, and that we have a tape available if there are discrepancies. That's my motion.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Cindy and Gamble. Thank you.
Thank you.
You get your business card yet? Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
Have some, yeah.
Good.
He hand-rated them.
Staff discussions, any reports? Bill?
Two items for you today. The first item is there was a request by a member of the public that we consider posting the bylaws of the Planning Commission on the website. And I wanted to bring that before you all and ask if you're comfortable with us doing that. They are a public record and anyone can request a copy, and once in a while someone does and we do provide them. But this request was, could they be added to your website specifically for the Planning Commission?
I don't see a problem with that.
All right, we can do that. And as noted earlier, the comprehensive rezoning process and land use ordinance are coming to a milestone. Our plan is that at the beginning of August, we will be putting forward a copy of the land use ordinance for review. That will go to the county commissioners. Staff will be recommending that come before the Agricultural Advisory Commission and this body as ZTAs do. But since this process, comprehensive zoning isn't within the land use ordinance, so it's sort of a separate process, but we're sort of recommending to do the normal thing for the process. So that document will become public in August. I wanted to alert you to that and let you know that's coming. We hope to have it on the August 1st agenda of the county commissioners. Your meeting will be 2 days later, and I wanted to let you know that. We certainly don't expect any, conversation or review. It's your first meeting on August 2nd, but I thought you might want to consider having an item on your agenda for, it's August 3rd. On August 3rd, to talk about how you want to go over the document, right? You'll be making a recommendation. I was thinking we could do it in parallel with the Agricultural Advisory Commission, so that they would be going along, you doing theirs. Theirs is probably going to be a lot shorter time period, and that could get fed into you all. And just wanted to give you the opportunity between now and August to think about how would you like to review that. Do you want to go by chapter? Do you want to go by topic? Do you want to try to do the whole thing in 2 bites? I mean, it's really your all's recommendation that Board of County Commissioners are looking for. And I thought that on August 3rd, we could just have a discussion about maybe what approach you might like to take so that you can get it accomplished in an efficient way and also gives you time to review it. There will be a track changes version and there will be a clean copy version, as with many of our items. And our goal is to have it be compact, navigable, look good.
When you say available, would that be online? Like when the commissioners have it, we can see it online? Yeah.
It'll be in their packet, that's what at least we'll
Yes.
start.
Okay.
There can migrate to web pages.
Thank you.
So that's all, I just want to let you know, so you all have.
Well, I think we should have an agenda item for whatever we decide for the discussion on what we want to do, if nothing else, so.
And then we could, work on, at the next meeting after that, bring whatever first pieces you wanted to do. Okay, that's fine. You all.
Carla?
I can just report out that there were, received 24 applications for landowners who are selling easement to mouth, and those have been forwarded on to the state. And other than that, just keeping busy with building permits and comprehensive rezoning stuff and phone calls and, normal work.
You said the preservation, how many of them were there?
There were 24 applications, so we have 30 or 40 ag districts. Of those ag districts, 24 people submitted an application to sell an easement. Those applications get forwarded to the state, to the Maryland Agricultural Land Preservation Foundation, where they are, appraisals will be conducted, and then next spring, the state will start making offers to those landowners.
That's
Now, not
24 total, or 24 within Kent County?
24 in Kent County.
24 in Kent County.
And not all of those people, or I would be, shocked if all of those landowners received offers, but they all will be considered.
What- This is curious, off the top of your head, you don't know what the total acreage was for those, do you?
No, I don't.
Come on.
I would say take what, 24 times 2, so that's what, 4,800?
It's just a lot of property.
What do you mean by that? That is a lot of property. Is that,
No, it's just, it's 24 parcels is, to me, it's a lot. I mean, I'm not saying I'm for or against it, I'm just saying it's just, I look at already what's in preservation, and now we're just adding that much more. It's just taking land away from maybe other things that could happen.
Well, this is all land that is within our priority preservation area, and is within our agricultural zoning district, so. And it's all been land that has been vetted by both the planning commission and the county commissioners for, preservation by putting into ag preservation districts.
thank you. Mark? Or unless you had more, Carl, I'm sorry. Oh.
I
Mark?
would expect you're gonna be catching a lot of the Dickens, because I think stuff from the health department's coming to a screeching halt. And they're gonna point the finger at you. That gets them out of their office.
Mark, anything? Campbell? No comment. Thank you. We have some people in the public that patiently waited here. Any just enjoying the
Air
you
conditioning.
see?
We thought that Dr. Miller had great
Who?
desire to expand or put
Oh.
an addition to his home, one of his homes.
Oh, okay.
And it was expected to be discussed today, I thought.
We have the date to show up.
Oh, okay.
So I said,
Staff may know something or nothing, I don't know.
No, that's been postponed to October, I believe, because the applicant's attorney and the applicant had conflicting issues, isn't that correct?
okay,
So, sorry about that.
well, we're in favor in any case.
Thank you. Any comments?
We'll be back, apparently.
Apparently, we'll look forward to seeing you. Any comments from the members? Any questions,
I
comments?
got a question. I wanna ask Jamie something, all the way in the back.
All right, to wait till they do.
Jamie. Could you come up front for a minute? Aren't you,
Wait,
They're
just
asking
hold
for a
on.
setback of
Wait.
200,
You can come forward, I just,
right here. But they're asking for a setback variance
I
of
might have to
200
ask
feet,
this,
because it's 600 feet's
I
what's
might have to
required.
ask you in private.
This one is 310-foot
All right.
variance,
okay.
and this one
Thank
is
you.
300 and some, 350, I think. I can't
Um,
read it right
it-
there, but that's the variance they're asking for. They don't need a 400-foot variance, they need a 200-foot variance, because the setback is 600 feet.
Should be 600.
Yeah. And this, they're asking for a variance
Um,
there of 310 feet.
One thing,
Okay,
and
okay.
when I was reviewing the
That's what
minutes,
they're
because,
asking
was, and it troubled me today, we got that letter from Kevin today about the road thing, and I couldn't get online to look at, because it just said approved. And I can't believe the state didn't have some comments, and we have it in there that we want that road thing for every one, and then they've requested preliminary and concept again. And I just think they changed their application. I think that's a great company. Kevin's a good friend, but I think they're pushing it through. I think we make sure we deliberate on those properly. I really think that should have been done. I think it's a major,
Why we brought it back to as concept.
right, but then they want preliminary and final next time, and that doesn't necessarily have to happen.
No, and no.
But when you recommended in the minutes,
You could have said you disagreed with it, I guess.
yeah, it would have been easier for staff to say it's a major road situation and that there's no need for it. That's all I'm saying.
You're looking for the correspondence as well between?
Well, I think, I'd love to see what the state said. They're the experts, and all it said was approved, has a link to it. I would like to read that. We didn't get it, so I couldn't see it. I hope they are concerned about the speed of that area or signage, that's all, if they're gonna allow it. I just hope they are.
And I'm sure we will
'Cause-
have more information from Kevin by the time it comes back
Yeah.
forward.
Okay.
Sorry, I couldn't
Well-
address the staff report. It was sent to me today.
Yeah, and I'm gonna talk to Kevin about, because I think we needed, that was a concern we had. It's not that that was, I think, the major concern, when the other, it was just the traffic, everything, we're fine with everything else.
You
And
know,
it-
those trucks are coming
Well,
out, the
be
one in town.
careful about talking about the project because the applicant's not here and we've moved on from that agenda item, but, so.
I'm just commenting
project
what
specific.
happened.
But I mean, like, getting the letter, having access, what's in the staff report,
Okay.
that's fair game, yeah.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I can't talk about it now. I had something good to say.
Next time.
Oh. That's all I had. I just think we gotta be careful of some of those things, that's all. I'd like to see these projects get moving, but, you know, safety's first.
Thank you, Mr. Sutton.
I just wanted to say, applicants are gonna ask to have things compacted in less steps, just.
Sure.
They're probably gonna-
I don't blame him for that, I don't.
I mean, I think we've adopted the policy that the answer is you gotta do 3 steps. If you come, at concept, you can come and ask the planning commission to combine the
Yeah.
last 2 steps. And honestly, I don't know how Cindy feels is, you know, I don't see, I think you can initially say, yeah, you're allowed to combine the steps if you do all the parts, and if they come and they combine the steps and you still have questions and you're not satisfied, then you just.
I
go
agree.
preliminary.
The
Go back.
question on this one, because it was the roads, as I remember it, the minutes would reflect that we talked about roads,
Oh, I get it.
and that was in our minutes. That would have been a question, that's all.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
We don't necessarily need to follow the state code, as well, we can be more stringent. I mean, approval, site plan approval.
We certainly can. I think the question is, it came up, we're not the authorities on traffic safety. Even if you are an authority on traffic safety, the state is the authority, and we should use their advice.
Correct, use their advice, but at the same, I think if we made it more stringent, that would not be a problem. We can't loosen it,
No, no.
but, we wouldn't want to. But I don't see why we couldn't make it more, if,
With
We
all,
gotta see what's
with
there.
all applications that come before you. That's what you're asking about, not this particular.
Jim, we're gonna dock your pay unless you wait till we adjourn.
I don't think he cares.
what's your vote on adjournment?
Do we want to entertain a motion to adjourn, or is anyone,
I make a motion, we adjourn before we get in
Second.
trouble with our council.
all in favor? She's already scolding me.
But I want that in the minutes.